Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today, we continue following the latest twists and turns in the turbulent story of three characters, Diep, Little Ly, and James. Though they share no blood ties, through countless trials, love and sacrifice have bound them together into a small but unbreakable family. Yet life is never smooth. After fleeting moments of peace, new challenges once again arise. Strangers appear with hidden schemes, long-buried secrets slowly come to light, and invisible distances quietly push them apart. In the midst of it all, can Diep, a fragile woman, find the strength to fight and protect the happiness she now holds? Will James, a man who seems strong, return in time to stand beside mother and child, facing the storms together? And what about Little Ly, the innocent child? How will she endure when confronted with events far beyond what a child can understand? Each episode brings a dramatic slice of their lives, revealing dark corners while igniting fragile sparks of hope. Behind the struggles, betrayals, and ruthless schemes lies a longing for a simple home, the laughter of a child, and a love strong enough to overcome all obstacles. Stay with us through today's episode to see where fate will take them. Will they hold hands and walk through the storm together, or will the hidden plots tear their happiness apart? The answers will slowly unfold right here, right now. At dawn, when a thin mist still lingered across the small yard, the eastern sky began to glow with the soft blush of morning. From afar came the lively crowing of roosters, marking the start of a new day. Inside the little house, Diep gently stirred, her eyes still carrying traces of weariness, yet her hands quickly reached for her daughter's school clothes. She folded each shirt, each tiny dress neatly, placing them on the bed as though it were a familiar morning ritual. In a tender voice, as soft as the breeze at sunrise, she called, "Ly, time to wake up, darling. School is waiting." Ly rubbed her sleepy eyes, slowly sitting up, her fine hair tousled. Smiling, Diep pulled her close, her practiced hands smoothing and braiding each strand until two neat little pigtails took shape. Her patient gaze radiated boundless love. To her, every carefully tied ribbon was a quiet message. Step into the world with confidence, my child. Remember, your mother is always by your side. Outside, James had already risen early and was wheeling his bicycle into the yard. The tires rolled softly over damp tiles still glistening with dew. Dressed in a simple shirt, he nevertheless carried the steady, grounded presence of a man shouldering his family's burdens. The moment Ly spotted him, she dashed out, clutching the brand new backpack bought just yesterday. Her eyes sparkled like two little gems as she chirped, "Daddy, today I'm going to show my teacher my new backpack." James laughed, pride flickering in his eyes, while Diep, standing behind them, smiled warmly. Their laughter blended together, carried away by the radiant morning sunlight, washing away all worries. On the familiar village path leading to town, they stopped at the corner breakfast stall. Steam rose thickly from simmering pots of pho, filling the air with a savory aroma that made their stomachs stir. James ordered a bowl of beef noodle soup for Ly, knowing she loved the light sweetness of its broth. Diep chose sticky rice wrapped in fragrant green dong leaves, its soft grains and rich mung beans evoking memories of her childhood. As always, James asked only for a strong black coffee, sipping it slowly, savoring the faint bitterness that opened his day. Amid the bustle of chatter and the clinking of chopsticks, the small family sat close around a rustic wooden table. Ly chattered happily about her classmates while eating. Diep listened attentively, occasionally wiping a drop of broth from her daughter's lips. Across the table, James watched with gentle eyes, now and then placing a few extra slices of meat into their bowls. Without flowery words, these quiet gestures of care tied their three hearts ever closer. After breakfast, their journey continued toward school. The morning street was alive with birdsong along the roadside trees, golden light cascading across weathered rooftops. At the school gate, Ly hopped off the bike, her tiny hands waving eagerly. "Remember to pick me up this afternoon, okay?" Her innocent voice rang out across the crowded courtyard, mingling with the cheerful laughter of children rushing into class. James and Diep stood watching, their hearts swelling with a happiness beyond words, as if, in that moment, all life's struggles and worries simply melted away. Sunlight stretched across the road as the couple quietly turned to ride home. Diep leaned her head lightly on James's shoulder, her heart whispering, "Perhaps happiness doesn't need to be grand. Sometimes, just a peaceful morning, a simple meal, and a child's playful promise are enough to warm a mother's and father's hearts for the whole day." That morning, after taking Ly to school, Diep hurried to the market with a basket of eggs to sell. The rural market was nothing new to her. Stalls crammed close together, vendors calling out to attract customers, knives chopping, children laughing, buyers and sellers bargaining, all blending into a lively, rustic symphony. Sitting in a corner, Diep carefully arranged the eggs in her basket, greeting each passerby with a gentle smile. In her mind, the thought was simple: sell quickly, go home to cook lunch, and still make it in time to pick up her daughter in the afternoon. But fate played a cruel trick. While Diep was still busy at the market, something unexpected unfolded at the small house she shared with her daughter. A middle-aged woman, neatly dressed and carrying a leather bag, suddenly appeared at the gate. Beside her stood a uniformed police officer, his stern face and cold eyes drawing the attention of the neighbors. The woman raised her voice firmly, declaring in front of everyone that she was Ly's true blood relative. Speaking clearly and deliberately, she announced, "Today, I have come to take the child back to her real family." Her words struck like thunder on a clear day, shaking the entire neighborhood. Whispers spread quickly. Some pitted Diep, others were curious and doubtful. The news traveled like wildfire, turning the once peaceful morning into a scene of chaos. At that very moment, Diep rushed back from the market, still holding her now empty basket. Seeing a crowd gathered in front of her home, she froze for an instant. Then, spotting her daughter standing in the middle of the throng beside a strange woman, her heart clenched in pain. Without thinking, she darted forward, dropped to her knees, and clung tightly to Ly's arm, her voice choked with tears. "No, you cannot take her away. She is my child. I've raised her, cared for her day and night. You can't tear her away from me like this." Her trembling but resolute words moved many of the onlookers to tears. With reddened eyes, she looked desperately toward the officer, hoping he would see the injustice and put a stop to it. Yet amid the chaos, the woman edged closer to the policeman, whispering under her breath, "I've already transferred 100 million. If this works out, I'll send another 200. The whispered bribe was overheard by a few neighbors standing nearby. Shock spread across their faces, the tense air growing heavier still. Diep heard it too. Her whole body shook, her heartbeat racing wildly. Clutching Ly tightly, tears streaming down her face, she screamed in despair. "You want to use money to steal my child? I would give up everything, but I will never let go of Ly." In her mother's arms, little Ly trembled, wide eyes filled with confusion. She couldn't fully understand what was happening, only that she must cling to her mother's thin, trembling hand. Fear drove her to burrow deeper into the safety of that embrace, as though letting go even for a moment would mean being torn away forever. The scene became a suffocating standoff. On one side, a fragile single mother ready to sacrifice everything to protect her child. On the other, a woman claiming to be family, but hiding dark schemes in her heart. The neighborhood fell silent, broken only by Diep's choked sobs and the child's cries, sounds like knives cutting into the hearts of everyone who witnessed them. The next morning, as the first light of dawn broke and the roosters crowed at the edge of the village, Diep forced herself to rise. Her body still ached with exhaustion after yesterday's turmoil, yet her eyes carried a quiet determination. She stepped silently into the garden, her hands swiftly picking ripe, golden pears. Dewdrops rolled down their smooth skins, dampening the sleeves of her blouse, but she paid no mind. In her heart, a single thought echoed: life must go on as usual. She had to stay strong so that little Ly would not sense the fear in her mother's heart. Carrying a basket of pears to the market, Diep settled in her usual spot, laid out a small cloth, and neatly arranged the fruit in tidy stacks. The morning market bustled with vendors calling out, customers bargaining, and cheerful chatter filling the air. Diep's gentle smile blended into the lively scene, drawing passers-by to stop and buy. With each purchase, she bowed her head slightly, offering her thanks, her smile as warm as on any other day. Yet behind that calm appearance churned a storm she could not show. Every time she handed a pear to a customer, flashes of Ly's frightened eyes from the day before would surge back, the way her daughter had clung desperately to her mother's hand, afraid of being taken away. The memory weighed heavily on her chest, pressing like a stone. Still, Diep would not allow herself to falter. More than anyone, she knew that if she lost her strength, Ly would lose the only anchor she had left. Amid the crowded marketplace, Diep's kind smile never faded, but deep within her gaze lay hidden burdens, a silent worry that only those who had endured the same trials could truly understand. The next morning, as the first light of dawn broke and the roosters crowed at the edge of the village, Diep forced herself to rise. Her body still ached with exhaustion after yesterday's turmoil, yet her eyes carried a quiet determination. She stepped silently into the garden, her hands swiftly picking ripe, golden pears. Dewdrops rolled down their smooth skins, dampening the sleeves of her blouse, but she paid no mind. In her heart, a single thought echoed: life must go on as usual. She had to stay strong so that little Ly would not sense the fear in her mother's heart. Carrying a basket of pears to the market, Diep settled in her usual spot, laid out a small cloth, and neatly arranged the fruit in tidy stacks. The morning market bustled with vendors calling out, customers bargaining, and cheerful chatter filling the air. Diep's gentle smile blended into the lively scene, drawing passers-by to stop and buy. With each purchase, she bowed her head slightly, offering her thanks, her smile as warm as on any other day. Yet behind that calm appearance churned a storm she could not show. Every time she handed a pear to a customer, flashes of Ly's frightened eyes from the day before would surge back, the way her daughter had clung desperately to her mother's hand, afraid of being taken away. The memory weighed heavily on her chest, pressing like a stone. Still, Diep would not allow herself to falter. More than anyone, she knew that if she lost her strength, Ly would lose the only anchor she had left. Amid the crowded marketplace, Diep's kind smile never faded, but deep within her gaze lay hidden burdens, a silent worry that only those who had endured the same trials could truly understand. The next morning, before the light could fully pierce through the thick white mist blanketing the garden, Diep forced herself to sit up. The night before, she had barely slept. The horrifying images of the struggle with the strange woman, along with the invisible threats, replayed endlessly in her mind, leaving her eyes swollen and ringed with exhaustion. Her face was haggard, her shoulders heavy with fatigue, yet she drew in a deep breath. She knew that even if she herself faltered, Ly still needed to see a strong mother, needed to feel that life was steady so her fear would not grow deeper. She stepped into the garden, filling her lungs with the dawn air, heavy with damp earth and fresh grass. Dew still clung to the leaves, sparkling like gems. Ripe pears hung in golden clusters, glistening in the pale morning light. Diep reached up, plucking them one by one. Each fruit dropped into the bamboo basket with a crisp sound, as if chasing away some of the weight in her chest. With every pear she placed inside, she whispered to herself, "I must endure, for my child, for our little home. I cannot be weak." With the basket full, Diep hurried toward the market. The dirt path to the town was slick with dew, her footsteps leaving urgent imprints along the way. The morning market was already alive with noise, the cries of vendors selling fish, the calls inviting customers to buy vegetables, the clucking of chickens, the playful shouts of children, all weaving together into a vivid symphony of daily life. Diep returned to her usual spot, spread out an old cloth, and neatly stacked the pears into tidy piles. A gentle smile graced her lips, blending into the bustle around her. She greeted familiar customers warmly, bowing her head in thanks whenever someone stopped to buy. To those passing by, she was just an ordinary woman, diligent, kind, and modest, like so many others at the village market. But only she knew the storm that raged behind that smile. Each time she handed over a pear, her hands trembled faintly with the memory, but she forced herself to steady them, hiding the quiver beneath a calm expression. In her mind, the image of Nie's terrified eyes from the day before returned vividly, the innocent gaze of a child clutching her mother's hand in despair, as if letting go meant being lost forever. The sound of her daughter's trembling cry, "Mommy," echoed like a sharp blade cutting into Diep's heart. Standing in the middle of the crowded market, Diep kept smiling as though nothing had changed, blending into the noisy rhythm of life. Yet deep within her eyes, unseen by anyone, a raging storm howled silently. For her, this was no longer just about selling a basket of pears to make a living. Behind every gesture, every smile, lay a solemn vow. No matter what storms might come, she would hold on to this life, hold on to her daughter at any cost. In the vast office, where the golden light spilled across a desk piled high with documents, James was still poring over important contracts. The steady tapping of keys echoed in rhythm with the tense breath of a long day. Suddenly, his phone rang. On the screen appeared two familiar letters, "Father." James froze. A wave of unease crept into his chest, weighing him down. He reached for the phone, but before he could speak, a voice came through, cold, commanding, carrying undeniable authority. "James, you must stop. Do not take in that strange child. You are disgracing this family, do you understand?" Each word cut like a blade, slashing straight into James's heart. His entire body stiffened, his hand gripping the phone so tightly his knuckles turned white. Eyes shut, he drew a deep breath, but anger and pain flared violently in his bloodshot gaze. Finally, James forced out each word, his voice hoarse but unyielding. "You're wrong. Nie is not a stranger. She is our child, flesh and blood of this family. I would rather lose everything than let anyone tear apart the home that Diep and I built. Even you, Father." The line went silent for a few seconds, as if a storm was gathering on the other end. Then the voice returned, colder than ever. "If this is the path you choose, do not expect my support any longer. Your position in the company, I will strip it away. Bear the consequences yourself." The call ended with a chilling dial tone, leaving James standing alone in the vast office. His hand fell limp, breath ragged, before he suddenly gripped the edge of the desk, knuckles trembling. His teeth clenched so hard that blood trickled from the corner of his mouth. In that moment, James realized he had been cast out, stripped of power, abandoned by his own family. Ahead lay only darkness and countless schemes waiting to strike. But James's defiance had only just begun. His father went further, ordering James's mother to return and take his side, expecting her compliance as always. Yet this time, he was wrong. After years of silent endurance, she finally raised her voice, resolute, unwavering. "You are wrong. Ni is not a stranger. She is my granddaughter, blood I acknowledge. I will never abandon her, nor James, nor Diep. If you wish to stop them, then you must stop me too." Her words rang out like a blade severing the chains that had bound her for so long. Between honor, power, and lineage, she chose her heart. She chose to protect the truth, to shield those who needed her most. James stood frozen, his chest overwhelmed by a torrent of emotions, pain, gratitude, and a fierce love. In that instant, he knew, even amid the raging storm, he still had one anchor, one person who believed in him. From that moment on, his resolve burned brighter than ever. No matter if he had to face his family or the battlefield of business alone, he would stand firm to protect Diep, to protect Ni, and to protect the fragile home he cherished as his entire life. On a deserted road at dusk, James drove home alone after a long, exhausting business trip. The setting sun spilled across the asphalt like streaks of fire. Wind rushed in through the half-open window, carrying the dampness of roadside trees, but it did little to sweep away the fatigue and heavy thoughts pressing on his mind. At that moment, James could think only of Diep, little Ni, and the relentless storm of troubles closing in on their small family. As he was about to turn into a crowded street, a group of reckless youths suddenly swerved up from behind. They rode battered motorbikes, engines roaring harshly. One deliberately veered close, forcing James to jerk the wheel and slam the brakes. Before he could recover, another lunged forward and snatched the leather wallet from his jacket pocket. It all happened in a matter of seconds. Then the gang sped off, engines howling, their mocking laughter echoing into the distance. James froze in the middle of the road, heart pounding, eyes burning red with rage and helplessness. He sprinted a few steps after them, but his sturdy frame was no match for their speeding bikes. Gasping, drenched in sweat, he collapsed against the roadside, chest heaving. Curious bystanders stopped to watch, yet none dared confront the gang that had vanished into a narrow alley. Trying to steady himself, James borrowed a phone from a passerby to check his bank account, hoping at least his savings remained intact. But when he entered his password, a chilling message flashed across the screen. Account frozen. Transaction cannot be completed. James went numb. It was as though his heart had plunged into an abyss. Years of hard work, all the savings meant to secure a future for his family, gone, blocked in an instant. And he knew there was only one person with the power to make that happen, his father. He staggered to the curb and sank down, clutching his forehead, gasping for breath as though suffocating. The stares of strangers no longer mattered. In his head, his father's cold words echoed, "Do not raise a stranger's child. Do not disgrace this family." He bit down hard, tasting blood, feeling as if the whole world had turned its back on him, leaving him to flounder in the dark. In that despair, James gripped the phone, trembling fingers dialing the only number he could still trust, his mother's. After a few rings, her voice came, shaky yet warm, breaking through the storm. "My son, I know everything. Don't worry. I will always be with you. No matter what your father does, I will stand by you, by Diep and by little Ni." Just those few words were like cool water soothing a burning heart. James closed his eyes, and at last, the hot tears spilled over, streaming down his face. In that moment, pushed to the very edge, He realized he still had one light to cling to, one shoulder to lean on. Even if the world turned against him, James knew he still had his mother. And that alone was enough to help him rise again, ready to keep fighting for his family, for Diep, and for Ly, the child he had sworn to protect at all costs. That night, the small house was wrapped in an unusual silence. The dim yellow light from the hanging lamp revealed every crack in the old walls. Outside, the night wind slipped through the doorframe, carrying the steady chirping of insects, but inside, the air was heavy, weighed down by all that had happened. James sat quietly on the familiar wooden chair, his gaze distant, as though burdened by 100 unspoken worries. Many times he opened his mouth to speak, only to swallow the words back, afraid of adding to Diep's anxiety. At last, unable to keep it hidden, he told her everything: his father's cold call, the decision to strip him of his role at the company, the ambush on the road by a gang of youths, and the stolen wallet. And when he checked his account, every cent, every saving, all frozen. What he had built over the years had, in an instant, been reduced to nothing. Diep listened in stunned silence, each word cutting into her heart like a blade. Her chest ached, but she sat close, offering him the comfort of her presence. James gripped her thin hand tightly, his eyes red, his voice hoarse yet trembling with determination. "I swear, no one will ever take me from us. Even if I lose everything, money, power, the company, I still have you and our child. And I will protect you both, no matter what I must face." Hearing this, Diep's tears finally fell. She looked into his eyes and saw the mingling of despair and burning resolve. His pain was hers too. In that moment, she nodded, her voice trembling but resolute, like a vow made in unison. "We will get through this together. No matter the storm, I will never let go." That night, the two of them sat side by side for a long time. No words were needed, only silence and shared breaths. Yet within that silence lay the strongest declaration of their love and their will to protect their family. The next morning, as the first light of sun broke through, Diep rose early as usual. After preparing breakfast for James, she carried a basket of fresh vegetables from the garden to visit her mother-in-law. Spotting her from afar, the older woman hurried out to help with the basket, her eyes filled with affection, though shadowed by worry. Seated together, Diep recounted everything that had happened. Each detail tightened the mother's chest, her eyes welling with tears, but her voice remained steady and firm. Holding Diep's hand, she spoke slowly, each word carved with conviction. "Don't be afraid. Ly is my granddaughter, our blood undeniable. I will always be here for you and James. His father may be harsh, but I will never abandon you. Trust me." Hearing this, Diep could not hold back her tears, but this time, they were no longer weighted with despair. They were tears of comfort, of newfound strength. In that moment, she knew she was not alone. With James beside her, and with her mother-in-law's unwavering support, she would find the courage to protect Ly and to safeguard the fragile but precious happiness they held. Diep sat beside him, her voice trembling as she recounted the entire story about the strange woman who had come to their home with a police officer claiming to be Ly's relative and demanding to take the child away. When she mentioned how that woman had secretly whispered about hundreds of millions of dong, James froze. Every word pierced him like a cold blade stabbing straight into his heart. He said nothing at first, his silence terrifying, as his hands clenched so tightly that his knuckles turned white. A thought struck him like lightning. Could it be that all of this was orchestrated by Father? That he's trying to tear Diep and Ly away from me at any cost? The idea sent a shiver through James, filling him with both rage and anguish. But almost instantly, he swore to himself, every word ringing firm inside his mind. Even if I must stand against my entire family, I will never lose Diep and Nee. They are everything to me. That evening, the family gathered around a simple dinner table. The meal was nothing more than a bowl of vegetable soup, a plate of braised fish, and a little pickled mustard greens, but it was warmed by the love that bound them together. Nee chattered excitedly about school, giggling innocently as she reached for the vegetables. Diep nodded gently, smiling tenderly, though her eyes still carried traces of worry. James sat in silence, watching mother and child, his heart tightening. His gaze lingered on Diep, the woman who had borne so many hardships to protect this fragile happiness. Then it turned to Nee, the innocent child who had now become the center of ruthless schemes. A fierce emotion rose inside James, and he made a vow, etched deep within his soul. This family is everything to me. No one, not even father, will tear us apart. In that moment, James knew the real battle had only just begun. Yet he also knew that love and unwavering determination would be his strongest weapons to protect Diep and Nee, no matter if he had to face his entire bloodline and the hidden powers working in the shadows. That afternoon, after finishing work at the company, James drove to the house where his mother lived. The familiar road was bathed in sunlight, the breeze rustling through the rows of trees on either side, carrying with it the gentle fragrance of the meadows. At the gate, bougainvillea bloomed in a brilliant cascade, clusters of crimson blossoms swaying in the wind like a radiant curtain welcoming the son who had been away too long. James stopped the car and slowed his steps, taking in the simple, familiar sight. Yet his heart remained heavy, for he knew that behind that gate lay countless conflicts and unresolved battles. His mother came out to greet him. Her eyes were lined with age, yet still shone with warmth. Together, they walked into the porch. As she poured the tea, her voice trembled with emotion as she spoke about his father's fierce opposition, the harsh accusations, the endless arguments without resolution. Each word pressed on James's heart like a boulder, yet he listened silently, his eyes gradually reddening. Unable to hold back, James reached out and clasped his mother's hand. His voice was hoarse, but each word cut through the air like a blade. Adopting is never a shame. I will protect Diep, protect Nee, and protect this family. No matter how strongly father objects, I will never back down. Hearing this, his mother broke into tears. After years of living beside a stern husband, she knew all too well the cruelty in his decisions. Yet now, in her son's warm embrace, she felt a different kind of strength, firm, unyielding, and filled with love. She held James tightly, sobbing uncontrollably. Amid the lingering worry in her heart, a spark of hope flickered. Hope that no matter how stormy the road ahead might be, her son would have the courage to safeguard his small family, and she, too, would always stand by them, protecting them with everything she had. The small living room glowed under the gentle warmth of a yellow lamp, quiet yet filled with tenderness. James sat in the center, one arm around Diep, the other clutching little Nee tightly to his chest. The three of them seemed fused into one unbreakable circle. His eyes no longer carried the uncertainty of before. Instead, they burned with a blazing determination, like a long smoldering flame finally bursting forth after all the turmoil. Resting her head on her husband's shoulder, Diep wrapped her arms softly around their child, savoring a rare moment of peace after so many chaotic days. Nestled safely in her mother's embrace, Nee's innocent eyes wandered to James before she burrowed back against her mother's chest, as if to say, "As long as I have Mom and Dad, the world will always be safe." The moment seemed ordinary, but within it lay an invisible strength, binding James with an even fiercer resolve never to let anyone tear his family apart. The scene faded into stillness until a voiceover slowly echoed, heavy and resolute, etching into the listener's heart. A stranger pretending to be family. Is it all just a carefully staged act from someone pulling the strings behind the curtain? James begins to suspect his own father, the man he thought would never betray him. Where will these storms lead this fragile family? Will happiness endure, or will it shatter under the weight of a scheme long prepared? The frame closed on James's unwavering gaze, the eyes of a man ready to face anything, if only to protect the trembling home clinging to survival in the storm. But this was only the beginning. Ahead lay even greater trials, harsher truths waiting to surface, and deeper plots that could exact a heavy price from all three. Stay tuned for the next episode to see what James will do as the evidence begins to point toward his own family. Will Diep find the strength to endure new storms? And little Nee, will she be pulled into the whirlpool of schemes, or will she be able to keep her innocent peace? Don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments, hit like, and subscribe to support us. See you in the next episode, where truths and surprises will continue to unfold.
Xin chào tất cả mọi người đã quay trở lại với kênh của mình. Hôm nay thì mình tiếp tục đưa đến với mọi người câu chuyện về mẹ đơn thân Ly Hoai Ca là Lộn. Hôm nay mình tiếp tục đưa đến với mọi người video tiếp theo. Mình mong rằng video này sẽ góp phần nào đó cho niềm vui của mọi người. Không biết là ở chỗ mọi người hôm nay nắng hay mưa. Ở chỗ mình hôm nay thì nước lũ lên rất là ghê và bão rất là lớn đang về, nên là cái điện ở nhà mình do bão nó bị ảnh hưởng á mọi người, nên là nó bị mất. Với lại là do sấm chớp nhiều quá mình cũng ngưng dùng máy tính á, nên là mình không có lên video đều được. Hy vọng rằng mọi người vẫn sẽ ủng hộ cho kênh mình nhiều hơn và đón xem những phần tiếp theo trên kênh của mình. Cảm ơn mọi người rất nhiều. Hy vọng vẫn có thể gặp lại mọi người trong những video tiếp theo. Tạm biệt.